Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
After Paul, then Saul, encountered Jesus on the road to Damascus, the Lord said of him, "He is a chosen vessel of mine to bear my name before Gentiles, kings, and the children of Israel." With that prophecy, he also said Paul would suffer many things for the Lord's sake. In Acts 25, we see some of that actually happen. After his arrest in Jerusalem and 2 years in prison, Paul had appealed his case to Caesar. But before they could arrange to send him to Rome, King Herod Agrippa and his sister consort Bernice arrived to visit Governor Festus. While he was in town, Festus decided to get a second opinion on Paul's case, explaining that it centered around some religious dispute with the Jews. This piqued Herod's attention, so they brought Paul up from the prison. Festus knew that he had to send a letter with Paul to Rome explaining the charges against him, but so far he couldn't come up with anything. Now Paul having the floor to speak to both Governor Festus and King Agrippa was too good an opportunity to pass up. Instead of defending himself against the Jews' accusations, Paul used this time to share his testimony. I encourage you to read Acts 26 to get the full account. His story has the points that all good testimonies should have. First, he told of his life before Christ, how he'd been so zealous that he'd hunted down and persecuted Christians. Then he told how he met Jesus and came to believe in him on the way to Damascus. Then he told how Christ changed him from a persecutor to a preacher. Finally, he challenged Agrippa to believe. Festus interrupts at one point by saying something like, "Paul, you're out of your cotton-picking mind." But Paul continued, focusing on Agrippa. Here was King Herod's chance to redeem his family name. This Herod was the great-nephew of the Herod who had beheaded John the Baptist. He was also grandson of the Herod who killed the babies of Bethlehem, and the son of the Herod who had more recently executed James and imprisoned Peter. This Herod could have been known to biblical history as the Herod who became a Christian, but he just laughed it off. "Why, Paul, you almost persuade me to become a Christian," he said. He ignored the question, pushed it to the back of his mind, and moved on to another subject, agreeing with Festus that Paul had done nothing deserving of death. However, Paul's response had to ring in his ears years later. He said, "I would to God that not only you, but also all who hear me today might become such as I am, except for these chains." Paul turned a trial into a testimony. He shared the gospel. He wasn't responsible for the response, but he had the opportunity to share his personal experience and the truth of Jesus, so he did. How can you do that with the trial you're facing? One of my friends developed cancer a few years ago. Though she died of the disease, through her encouragement and love, many of her doctors and nurses and others heard about Jesus. At church, she was a beautiful testimony of how to handle trials. Many of her brothers and sisters in Christ grew closer to the Lord through prayer and interceding for her and her family. How can we turn a trial we're currently facing into a testimony? How can our courage and trust in God not only get us through a difficult time, but also become a testimony to others?
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through His Word. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you can find in the description below. Thank you for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.